Hello, and thank you for watching this regional forecast for the Corn Belt. I'm Andrew Pritchard, Senior Meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. With temperatures across the Corn Belt right now, we've got a couple things going on. We've still got a feed of warm and humid air coming up through the Central Plains into the Northern Plains. Meanwhile, we've got cooler and less humid air spilling in from the Great Lakes into parts of the Eastern Corn Belt. As we take a look at the satellite and lightning picture where we have that feed of warm and humid air, we've got ongoing clusters of thunderstorms across the Dakotas into parts of northern Minnesota. We'll continue to see those clusters of thunderstorms ongoing and kind of reigniting as we head through the afternoon and evening hours. The potential for some widespread severe storms across parts of Minnesota as we head into the later part of the day today. Now, as you head off to the south, across parts of the southeast, we've got warm tropical air coming up from the Gulf of Mexico. We've got showers and storms ongoing across parts of the Ohio River Valley, down into the mid-south. But again, we've got a cool start and a drier start to the weekend, and that will be continuing into next week as we talk about the Great Lakes here and parts of the Eastern Corn Belt. Now, I want to zoom in on one of the clusters of storms here across North Dakota. We've got a couple MCS ongoing, one across northern Minnesota, pushing into the UP of Michigan and northern Wisconsin. This one right now not reaching severe levels, but we have some heavy rain and some flash flood warnings in effect here across parts of central Minnesota. But as we head back towards the state of North Dakota, we do have some severe storms ongoing with the second system that's sweeping in. We've got a couple of storms here. One, we've got a supercell kind of leading the way, this one producing some damaging winds and some large hail, ping pong ball or tennis ball sized hail accompanying this storm. And then the one on the backside here, this one with more of a Boeing shape. This one's producing some damaging wind gusts, perhaps some hail as well, but this is much more of a damaging wind signature. And if I step back here just a bit, you can kind of see this fine line on the radar just preceding the line of storms. If you can kind of look here right at the leading edge there, that kind of thin green line, that's the gust front of this storm. So that's the kind of the defining line, the leading edge between the cool whoosh of outflow air that'll hit you there. If you're standing out in front of the storm, you'll see it moving in, the shelf cloud coming above you. And once that little line on the radar passes overhead, you'll notice the temperature drop and the strong gusty winds following. So a couple of strong storms ongoing right now, and we're going to see severe weather continuing in that region as we head through the day today. We've got an enhanced risk from the Storm Prediction Center across eastern North Dakota, and then including much of northern and central Minnesota. As we head into the day on Saturday, that would be the top right, this frontal boundary that's responsible for the storms today, continues off to the south. We have a marginal risk from parts of Illinois into Michigan, and then really quieting down even more as we head into Sunday. Just a marginal risk here with that frontal boundary as it pushes into parts of the Eastern Corn Belt, but really starting to quiet down behind it. Total precipitation over the next week, highest across the north where we've got storms ongoing, and we will see those continuing into the day today. And then down here across parts of the southeast and the mid-Atlantic where we've got that warm and humid feed from the Gulf of Mexico. But you see this dry corridor again shaping up from the Great Lakes down into the southern and central plains, and then this kind of wetter corridor back into the central plains. Much of that's falling here over the next 48 hours. We really are headed toward a cooler and drier next 5 to 7 days across the Corn Belt. Talking about today specifically, though, let's look at some of our key ingredients. In the top left, we've got the wind speeds at 500 millibars and the mid-levels of our jet stream. And again, you see the trough coming in, the U shape there, but then we've got the corridor of stronger winds blasting into eastern North Dakota and then the northern part of Minnesota. We'll go down a few thousand feet looking at the lower levels of the atmosphere. You can see the area of low pressure here along the northern border of Minnesota and North Dakota. Strong flow coming out of the south in advance of that storm system. That is our warm and humid, unstable feed here. And then we've got the cold front, the wind shift, and cooler, drier air coming in on the backside. So here's our trigger point, that frontal boundary. You can see it here. We're looking at instability in the bottom left. You see very unstable in advance of that system. The frontal boundary coming in from the west, again, extremely unstable. We've got our wind shear aloft. We've got the turning there. We've got the strong southerly flow out ahead of that. Dew points in the lower 70s, so very humid out ahead of that cold front. Again, all the ingredients there, instability, moisture, and wind shear for an outbreak of severe storms today. Most of those going to be producing damaging winds, some large hail possible, and you can't rule out a few tornadoes across the region as well. The high-resolution rapid refresh will take this into the rest of the day today. Again, it does a pretty good job handling the ongoing clusters of storms, one across northern Minnesota, the other one back across North Dakota early this morning. As we take this through the mid-afternoon and early afternoon hours, you can see the thunderstorms to the north continuing, again, producing large hail, damaging winds, but then you see the front Extending off to the south, we're getting ready to clash with that warm and humid air mass that's surging into southern and central portions of the state of Minnesota. So as we head into the late afternoon hours, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we'll look for that cold front to light up with, again, severe storms all the way through central and southern Minnesota, perhaps all the way back into parts of northwest Iowa as we head through the late evening and the overnight as well. We'll step it back, take a little bit of a longer look at the high-resolution NAM model through the same period. Again, heading through the morning hours today, watching those clusters of storms ongoing across the upper Midwest. As we head through the late afternoon and evening hours, we'll watch for a broken line of storms to erupt, perhaps congealing into a solid squall line with little bowing segments that should race across the state of Minnesota, perhaps northern Iowa, and then eventually into Wisconsin as we head through the overnight. Again, widespread damaging winds on the table with this one, but also isolated tornadoes and some large hail as we head through the late part of the days today. This same frontal boundary is going to sag into the eastern Corn Belt, parts of the mid-Mississippi Valley as we head through Saturday, but a very different setup. We don't have the upper level support. We don't have quite the instability in the region as well. So as this frontal boundary gets down into this region on Saturday, where we have that marginal risk, really looking for just isolated storms to pop up during the late part of the day, perhaps, one or two of those producing some gusty winds or some marginally severe hail, but not all that impressed about the thunderstorm setup on Saturday as this front moves off to the south and to the east, and even less impressed with things on Sunday as this thing continues to move off to the east, maybe a small risk for an isolated strong storm across the state of Ohio as we head through Sunday afternoon and evening. Now, as we take a look at the evolution of the pattern as we head into the next 5 to 7 days, we're going to watch for our building ridge of high pressure across the west. We're going to watch for a deepening trough across the Great Lakes, and that's going to set up flow something like this, so that we've got their heat being kind of forced off to the west. We're going to watch for multiple rounds of cooler and drier air to spill into the Great Lakes and the eastern Corn Belt, and this is really going to bring a pause to the thunderstorm activity across the Corn Belt. We'll look for several waves of cooler air, not necessarily cold, it is August, but we're also not looking at a dramatic cold front sweeping through here, but kind of reinforcing shots of drier air, I think, is maybe the bigger story here as we look at the precipitable water content within the atmosphere right now. Again, this is what's leading to the volatile setup across the north. Very moist air mass here, very warm and very unstable. Same thing here across the southeast, the mid-Atlantic states here. You already see kind of that drier air being worked into the Great Lakes and the eastern Corn Belt in advance of this approaching system. So that drier air is in place across the eastern Corn Belt. That's why when this frontal boundary sweeps in here on Saturday, it just does not have as much to work with across this region. So, we'll look for some showers and storms across the eastern Corn Belt, the mid-Mississippi Valley on Saturday evening, but not the setup that we're looking at today across the upper Midwest. Taking this deeper into the weekend, into early next week, here we go into Monday. Now you're seeing another shot of cooler and drier air arriving. We're going to see another weak frontal boundary pass through on Monday. And then this kind of continues. But what I want to point out here is, look at the Gulf of Mexico. We are not shutting this down, but we're kind of bringing a pause to it. So the flow, instead of seeing that warm, humid air surging way into the Corn Belt like we've seen almost uninterrupted throughout the entire summer, we're seeing a bit of a battle here where the Gulf of Mexico is open, but we're still seeing shots of that drier air coming in from Canada as we head into the later part of the month. So it does look like a 5 to 10 day kind of pause in the unimpeded surge of Gulf of Mexico moisture here, and a bit of a pause in the more widespread thunderstorm activity across the Corn Belt. So as we look at the next week, side-by-side temperatures on the left, precipitation on the right, we're looking at anomalies here, looking for temperatures generally to be cooler here across much of the Corn Belt, with a drier corridor as well from the Great Lakes into the southern plains. Much of this is what's falling here now into the next 24 to 48 hours. And then again, we've got the active southeast and mid-Atlantic states where we are not going to be shutting down the Gulf of Mexico. So just to look at the operational European model precipitation forecast then, all sorts of thunderstorm activity across the northern plains and the upper Midwest as we head through the day today into the overnight. As we watch this frontal boundary sink off to the south and to the east tomorrow, not nearly as much moisture to work with here across the mid-Mississippi Valley and the eastern Corn Belt, so just a few showers and storms along that front. Same thing across the eastern Corn Belt into the mid-south as we head into Sunday afternoon and evening. And then we really shut things down. High pressure across much of the Corn Belt as we're heading into now Tuesday, Taking it into Wednesday, again, the flow of the jet stream doing something like this. So heat off to the west, cooler air and much drier air being spilled into the Corn Belt, and much of the thunderstorm activity as we head into next week focused across parts of the southeast into the mid-Atlantic. So we're all the way into Thursday and Friday of next week, looking at a much drier picture across the Corn Belt. Really good agreement when we look at the European ensemble on the left, GFS on the right. Here we're looking at the probability of picking up a half an inch or more of rain over the next 7 days. So taking it all the way into next Friday, August 21st. Again, you see very good agreement across the north where we're seeing the thunderstorm activity today. Along that frontal boundary, as we head into parts of the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we could look for some of those storms to bring some locally heavy rainfall from the state of Iowa down into parts of western Kansas. And then we've got our very active southeast and mid-Atlantic area. But again, what you do see here is good agreement on a much drier week across the central part of the U.S., across much of the Corn Belt. Your high temperatures over the next several days. Today, cooler air starting to work in across the north, 80s for just about everyone else, and then we'll start to see that cool down as we head deeper into the weekend. Again, not a real dramatic push of cooler air, although we will see some 60s and 70s across parts of the Great Lakes, but generally a bit cooler than average and drier shots of air, and so that leads to a much quieter week in terms of rain and thunderstorm activity across the Corn Belt. Have a great day and a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you all again on Monday morning.